So we're going to start today with box and whisker plots. These are the notes for section 2 of chapter 7. Wednesday's video will be going over today's assignment a little bit, and then more practice of making box and whisker plots. So the essential question is, how can you use a box and whisker plot to describe a data set? Hopefully, by the time you finish watching this video, you will be able to answer that question. Remember, you absolutely need to be taking notes. I will be grading notes at the end of chapter 7, so probably somewhere the beginning of May. You'll have to come on Zoom and show me your notes. Probably is how we're going to do that. We'll see. I haven't figured out exactly, but we are going to look at notes and you will have a grade for it. So make sure as you're watching these videos that you're taking notes. You can hit pause so that you can write stuff down and take a minute and get up and walk around and come back to it. I will just keep on going, so it's up to you to make sure that you hit the pause button when you need to. So here are the notes that you need to write down, the information, okay, about box and whisker plots. This is the definition of box and whisker plots right here. It shows the variability, that's a big word, of a data set along a number line. Okay, so remember, so this right here is our number line. So it would go like have 0 in there somewhere, maybe go to the negatives, go to the positives. Kind of depends on what your data has in it. Sometimes you won't have any negatives because you're talking about collecting the number of people who do this and that, which you wouldn't have negative numbers of people who like to play football or anything like that. So, remember that everything we're talking about is real life. Like, you will have to deal with statistics in your life. We're dealing with it right now. I have heard more stats about coronavirus than I ever need to know, and I try really hard to not hear and read stats about it because it just makes me sad. So this chapter I think is very current for us. Not that you're going to see a box and whisker plot about coronavirus, but just the general idea of what a data set is, how high your numbers go, things like that. So, box and whisker plot, huge vocabulary word. Quartiles, huge vocabulary word. When we're talking about box and whisker plots, statistics, somebody might have once told you that you tested in the top 50th quartile or percentile, same thing. Okay? Quartile comes from the word quart, quarter, or 1/4. So there's going to be kind of every bit of our data is going to be divided into fourths, if you will, to get our quartiles. It doesn't mean 3 numbers, 3 numbers, 3 numbers, 3 numbers in our quartiles necessarily. We'll get into that more. Okay? So quartiles divided into 4 equal parts. Equal meaning different things in our data. Okay? So then the median here is our second quartile, our Q2. Okay? It's where our numbers are, our values, our data is divided into 2 parts. That's the same median that you were figuring out last week by writing your numbers in order and finding the one in the middle. Same median. Okay? So from the median here, the lower half is quartile 1 and the upper half is quartile 3. Okay? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So Q1 is where your first quarter of your data ends. Q2 is where the first half of your data ends. I'm going to use a different color as I feel like I'm just scribbling now. Q3 here is from the middle halfway up to the top, and then Q4, which you very rarely actually hear anything about Q4, though this is Q4, but the end of Q4 is the greatest value. So this is really Q4, even though you never really hear that. Okay? This right here, this 5-number summary is huge. You will be asked, what are the 5-number summary values for any set of numbers? What that means is it's asking for Q1, Q2, Q3, it's asking for, which is the median, right? And it's asking for the least and the greatest. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. 5-number summary. Go back, reread this, re-watch this, and then hit pause and write it down. I'm going to erase all my scribbles at this point so that if you want to write it down now, you can. Though really you probably should have written it down before, so maybe now write it down and then go back and watch what I did and add your own scribbles that you might want. Mostly I'm just having fun using the eraser on here. Just kidding. Okay, so hit pause so you can write it down. I'm moving on. So, how are we going to use all this stuff? Okay, well, here's the question. I've just added all of the answers on here too. So, we're going to make a box and whisker plot that represents the ages of the members of a backpacking expedition in the mountains. Who cares? All that matters is that we're making a box and whisker plot from the ages. Okay, here's our information. Okay, notice that it is written in order. You must write in order from least to greatest. If you don't, you won't be able to find the median. So, we need to find those 5 numbers. Okay, we need to find the least value. Well, let me change colors again. You need to find the least value. You need to find the median, and I recommend doing it in this order, and then find the greatest value. Because then, once you have that median, you've divided your information into a lower half and an upper half. Once you've done that, you can take that lower half and divide it in half, find that number in the middle, and that gives you your first quartile, or your Q1. Take your upper half, divide it in half, that number in the middle. You will often have to find the average of those two numbers, which would be 29, and you get your third quartile. So now we have our 5 numbers that we need. We have our least value, our Q1, our median, our Q2, Q3, and our greatest value. Let me find a different color here for us. Okay, and then we take those and we put them on our box and whisker plot. Be very careful. Your number line here doesn't need to have any more numbers than from the least value to the greatest value. So you don't have to count this all the way back to 0 or anything. Start with 18 or start with 17 if you want to have an extra. Go up to 31 if you want to have an extra. But you don't have to go like 0 to 50 or anything. But what does matter is that when you're making your number line, all you're doing is looking at your least value and your greatest value and writing every number in between. It doesn't matter if that number is in your data. It doesn't matter if that number is in your data twice. On your number line, you're going from your least to your greatest and writing every number in between. Okay, so notice that we've written a 23 here, even though there's not actually a 23 in your data. Okay, but it's a number line. As in any number line, you don't skip numbers. Okay? Now, there might be a time when we count by fives or something, but that's different than just skipping a number. So, once you have your number line written, you're going to take and you're going to put your Q1, your Q2, your sorry, I lied. Let me go back. You're going to take and put your least value, your Q1, your median, your Q3, and your greatest value. You're going to put points at those numbers, whatever they were when you figured out your 5 points. Okay? And then between Q1 and Q3, you put a box, thus the box, part of the box and whisker plot name. Okay? You're going to put lines from Q3 to greatest and least to Q1. Those are what we call our whiskers. Okay? And then if you want, I'm not as picky, draw your line at your median. I'm not as picky about that line. The rest of the lines absolutely have to be there because that's what makes it a box and whisker plot. Let's go on from all my scribbles and do a problem together that doesn't already have all the answers. Okay, so here's our numbers. Let's put them in order. So let's see, 12, 13, 15, 16, 2 18s. You have to put them both. Okay, put every number. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers in our list we just wrote to know that we've done this correctly. Okay, so that's good. So now let's find our 5 numbers. So we've got our least value. Okay, we've got our greatest value. Okay, and then let's divide them in half. So that's 4 on each side. Okay, so that means the number that is in the middle there is the average of 16 and 18. Some of you need to take the average. You need to go do 16 plus 18 divided by 2, okay, on your calculator. Some of you see that, oh, okay, the number that would be between 16 and 18 is 17. So that's our median, or also our Q2. And then we're going to take this half and divide it in half. Okay, the number that would be between 13 and 15, or the average of 13 and 15, is 14. That's our Q1. Take our second half over here, divide it in half. The number that would be between 18 and 20, or the average of 18 and 20, is 19. That's our Q3. Now we have all 5 of our numbers that we need to make a box and whisker plot. So on our number line, we're going to go from 12 to 24, and we are going to write every number in between. So we've got 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. You want to try, I didn't do very well, but you want to try to make sure that this space is the same every time, or they're very close. Otherwise, the next thing we do is your answer could be wrong. The next thing we do with this, okay? So now let's make this a pretty pink color. We're going to take our least value and put a point there. Why is that still not the right color? There we go. We're going to take our Q1 and point a point there. We're going to take our median and put a point there. We're going to put a point at Q3, which is 19. And we're going to put a point at our greatest value, which is 24. So that's our 5 points that have to be on our box and whisker plot. Now we're going to take and we're going to make our box and our whiskers. So from Q1 to Q3, we're going to make a box. From least value to Q1, and Q3 to greatest value, we're going to make our whiskers. And now we have a very pretty little box and whisker plot. For the most part, that's what we're doing this week. Some of the questions on today's assignment will be about interpreting it and stuff, but for the most part, we're making a box and whisker plot. Okay. So when we talk about interpreting it, we're talking about what shapes do we have. So if it's skewed left, it means that this whisker is longer. Okay, left means the left whisker is longer. Symmetric means that the two whiskers are about the same. Okay, and then skewed right means that the right whisker is longer. Okay, this is why it matters that when you make your number line that these are fairly not like that one I just made, and that they're kind of the same, because otherwise it's going to skew it wrong, and you might say that it's skewed right when it's actually symmetric, or the other way around. Okay, write this down, hit pause, write this down. So we need to find and interpret the range of the data. Okay, well, the range, okay, is the least to the greatest. We talked about that at some point. So from the least to the greatest, which means just take the greatest and subtract the least, and we get 140. So that would be the range of the data. What that means to interpret it, that 140 it means that there's 140 seconds between the biggest and the smallest of our data. Because, yeah, we're talking about the length of songs. Okay, and then this is the one from the notes that you just took. Okay, we're going to describe the distribution of the data. Well, we need to look at it. Look at your whisker. Is this whisker longer or shorter than that whisker, or equal to? Well, it looks to me like this one on the left is longer, so it is skewed left. Okay, so this last piece here, this find and interpret the interquartile range. Okay, make a note of this. It's not in your notes anywhere. Somehow you're just supposed to know this. The interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. That's it. So we're going to take Q3, subtract Q1, and the interquartile range is 60. Okay, so what this whole box and whisker plot is saying is that this is where most of the data falls. Okay, so that interquartile range means that even though all of the data is 140 seconds apart, most of the data falls within 60 seconds apart. So for the most part, most songs are somewhere close to a minute in difference of length. Okay, 60 seconds would be a minute. Okay, and then and this D is really asking the same question as this one, or well, yeah. So it's more spread out where your whisker is longer. So in this case, it's more spread out below Q1. Okay, so identify the shape of the distribution, of each distribution. So A looks like it has a longer whisker on the right, so it's skewed. I don't even know what I just wrote. Excuse me. Skewed right. Okay. B, on the other hand, well, that kind of looks like those whiskers are about even, right? So that means it's symmetric. Okay, and then kind of what we just said, which links are more spread out? Well, pretty much kicker A on the right side, so above Q3 for kicker A would be the most spread out. Okay. This is the part right here that I am super, super, how do I say this? That is super important and you will likely see on your state test. Okay? So keep that in mind. I think I'm done. I am done.